The stars looked different out here, on the edge of human territory. Captain Rebecca Chen stood on the bridge of the TCNS Indomitable, watching the view screen with tired eyes. 3 months of patrol duty, and nothing but empty space and the occasional asteroid. Her crew was getting bored, and bored sailors always meant trouble. "Captain, we've got something on long-range sensors," Lieutenant Marcus Webb called out from his station. His voice had that edge of excitement that came from finally seeing something interesting after weeks of nothing. Rebecca moved to his station, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "What are we looking at?" "Unknown vessel about 2 million kilometers out." "It's big, Captain. Bigger than anything in our database." Marcus tapped his screen, bringing up more details. "And it's just sitting there. Not moving, not responding to hails." Rebecca felt her stomach tighten. First contact situations were always delicate. Humanity had only been in space for 300 years, and they'd already managed to start 3 wars with their own colonies. Meeting actual aliens? That could go very wrong very fast. "Battle stations, but keep weapons powered down," she ordered. "I don't want to start an interstellar incident." "Communications? Send a standard greeting on all frequencies." The bridge came alive with activity. Crew members rushed to their positions, and the ship's lighting shifted to the red glow of combat readiness. Rebecca could feel the deck vibrate slightly as the Indomitable's massive engines hummed with increased power. On the alien vessel, Fleet Commander Kelvrax of the Genthor Sovereignty watched his own screens with mild interest. Another primitive species, no doubt. In his 40,000 years of recorded history, the Genthor had encountered hundreds of younger races. The pattern was always the same: scan them, assess their technology, and decide whether they were worth talking to or could be safely ignored. "Begin the deep scan," Kelvrax ordered, his voice carrying the casual authority of someone who had never been challenged. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know everything about their propulsion, weapons, and power systems." His science officer, a young female named Ciralis, began the scanning procedure. Invisible waves of energy swept across the human ship, penetrating its hull and analyzing every system. The Genthor scanning technology was so advanced that most species never even knew they'd been examined. But humans had been fighting each other in space for a long time. "They'd learned to detect everything. Captain, they're scanning us," Marcus shouted. "Deep penetration scan, military grade." "They're looking at everything." Rebecca's jaw clenched. Nobody scanned a military vessel without permission. That was basic protocol, even in human space. "Cut it. Send them a direct message, tight beam transmission. Tell them they have 3 minutes to identify themselves and explain why they're scanning a warship without permission, or we consider them hostile." On the illuminated truth, Ciralis looked up from her station, confusion clear on her face. "Commander, they detected our scan." "And they're threatening us?" Kelvrax laughed. It was a sound like wind chimes, beautiful and cold. "Threatening? Let me see their technology assessment." Ciralis transferred the data to his screen. Kelvrax's amusement faded as he read. "Primitive fusion drives, yes. Kinetic weapons instead of energy beams, how quaint. No shield generators at all, just thick metal armor like some ancient warship. And yet, what is this power reading?" he asked, pointing at a specific line of data. "This cannot be correct. Their reactor is generating enough energy to power a city." "I've triple-checked it, Commander," Ciralis said nervously. "The readings are accurate. Their power generation is massive, but it's distributed through dozens of smaller reactors instead of one central core. I've never seen such a design. It's inefficient, but the total output is concerning." Kelvrax waved a hand dismissively. "Concerning? We have displacement fields. We have energy weapons that can crack planets. What can these primitives do with their crude kinetic weapons and brute force engineering?" He looked at the countdown timer showing 2 minutes until the human deadline. "Ignore their threat. Begin a second scan. I want to understand their power distribution system." Back on the Indomitable, Rebecca watched the timer count down. 30 seconds, 20, 10. "Captain, they're scanning us again," Marcus reported, his voice tight with anger. "They're not even responding to our hails." Rebecca took a deep breath. She'd served in the colony wars. She'd seen what happened when you let someone think you were weak. "Helm, calculate a firing solution. Weapons, load 1 railgun, kinetic penetrator, depleted uranium core. We're going to put a shot across their bow." "Captain, are you sure?" her executive officer asked. "We don't know what they're capable of." "They're about to find out what we're capable of," Rebecca replied. Her voice was calm, but inside her heart was racing. This could start a war, but letting aliens scan a human warship without consequences, that could start something worse. Fire when ready, she ordered. Missed them by 100 meters. The Indomitable shuddered slightly as the railgun fired. A solid slug of metal, no bigger than a coffee can, accelerated down the length of the ship's spine at 15% the speed of light. It crossed 2 million kilometers in less than 4 seconds. On the illuminated truth, alarms screamed. The kinetic projectile appeared on their sensors like a ghost, moving too fast for their targeting systems to track properly. It missed their ship by exactly 100 meters and kept going, disappearing into deep space. Kelvrak stared at his screens in shock. His shields hadn't even attempted to stop it. The projectile had been moving so fast with so much kinetic energy that his defensive systems had simply failed to recognize it as a threat until it was already past them. "Get me a damage assessment," he said quietly. If that had hit us, Cyrilus's face had gone pale. "Commander, our shields are designed to deflect energy and slow-moving objects. That projectile had the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. If it had struck us directly, it would have punched straight through our hull, through our entire ship." For the first time in his long career, Kelvrax felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. These humans, these primitives with their crude technology, had just proven they could kill his ship before he could even react. "Open a communication channel," he said. "Perhaps we should actually talk to them." The communication channel crackled to life with a series of strange sounds that the computer quickly translated. Captain Rebecca Chen watched as an alien face appeared on her main screen. It was beautiful in a strange way, with silver skin and eyes that seemed to shift colors. But Rebecca wasn't interested in admiring alien features right now. "I am Fleet Commander Kelvrax of the Genthor Sovereignty," the alien said. His translated voice was smooth and formal. "Your aggressive action was unnecessary. We meant no harm." Rebecca crossed her arms. "You scanned a military warship without permission twice after being warned. In human space, that's an act of aggression." Kelvrax's expression showed something that might have been confusion. "We simply wish to understand your technology before initiating contact. This is standard protocol for the Genthor. We have been traveling the stars for 40,000 years. Surely you understand that we must assess potential threats. 40,000 years and you never learned to ask first?" Rebecca shot back. "We've been in space for 300 years and even we know better than to scan someone's warship without permission." On the illuminated truth, Kelvrax felt his pride stinging. This primitive human was lecturing him about protocol. He gestured to his tactical officer. "Prepare the displacement field. Full power. Let us show them the difference between their crude technology and true advancement." The space around the alien ship began to shimmer. Rebecca watched as the massive vessel seemed to flicker, becoming translucent. Her science officer shouted out readings that made no sense. Matter displacement. Quantum phasing. The ship was partially existing in another dimension. "Captain, their hull just became intangible," Marcus reported, his voice filled with awe. "Our weapons couldn't touch them right now. They're not even fully in our reality anymore." Rebecca felt cold sweat on her neck. This was technology far beyond anything humanity had. But she'd learned something in the colony wars: never show fear. Weapons target lock on their ship. "If that field drops, I want a full spread ready to fire." Kelvrax watched the humans scramble on his screen. Yes, let them see what real power looked like. The displacement field was the pride of Genthor technology. It made them nearly invincible. He was about to deactivate it and offer the humans a chance to apologize when Cyrilis screamed. "Commander, their weapons are still tracking us." "How are they tracking us?" Kelvrax looked at his tactical display. It was impossible. The displacement field should make them invisible to primitive sensors. But the human weapons were locked on perfectly, following his ship's exact position even as it phased between dimensions. What he didn't know was that human ships had been designed to fight other human ships. And humans had developed something called quantum echo tracking, specifically to detect ships trying to hide using experimental phase shift drives. It wasn't as advanced as the Genthor field, but it was close enough. "Deactivate the field," Kelvrax ordered quickly. Pride was one thing, but he was starting to realize these humans might actually shoot him. "And somebody explained to me how they tracked us through a displacement field." On the Indomitable, Rebecca saw the alien ship become solid again. "Stand down weapons but maintain target lock," she ordered. Then she looked at the screen where Kelvrax's face showed clear confusion. Commander, I suggest we both take a step back. You have technology we don't understand. We apparently have capabilities you didn't expect. How about we actually talk instead of waving our guns at each other? Before Kelvrax could respond, his tactical officer spoke up. Commander, I'm detecting multiple FTL signatures. Jump points forming. Rebecca's communication officer turned to her. Captain, the cavalry's arrived? 6 ships just dropped out of FTL. The Newton, the Thermopylae, the Churchill, the Crazy Horse, the Bismarck, and the Yamato. They're hailing us. Kelvrax stared at his screens in disbelief. 6 more human warships had just appeared. But more than that, they'd appeared fast. His distress call calculations showed that the nearest Genthor reinforcements were still 3 hours away. How had the humans responded so quickly? How long ago did you send your distress signal? He asked Rebecca. 15 minutes ago, Rebecca replied. When you started your second scan. Standard procedure. When facing unknown hostiles, you call for backup immediately. 15 minutes. The Genthor needed hours to coordinate a fleet response. The humans had 6 warships on station in a quarter of an hour. Kelvrax felt his understanding of these primitives shifting rapidly. Commander, I'm getting complete scans of the new human vessels, Siralis reported. They're all similar to the first ship. Massive power generation, heavy armor, kinetic weapons. But there's something else. Each ship is different. Different weapons loadouts, different armor configurations, different reactor setups. They're not standardized. Kelvrax understood the implication. The Genthor built every ship to exact specifications. Standardization meant efficiency. But it also meant predictability. These humans built every ship differently, which meant fighting one taught you nothing about fighting another. Captain Chen, Kelvrax said slowly, I believe we may have started our relationship poorly. The Genthor sovereignty would like to propose a ceasefire and formal negotiations. Rebecca nodded. Agreed, but Commander, I need to know. That displacement field of yours, that's your standard technology? Yes, most of our ships have it. Why? Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Because if you can do that, and you still thought twice about fighting us, I'm curious what else you know that we don't. Kelvrax made a sound that the translator interpreted as a laugh. Captain, I could ask the same about you. Your technology is primitive by our standards. Your ships are crude. You have no energy shields, no displacement fields, no quantum weapons, and yet I suspect if we had actually fought, you would have made it very costly for us. We would have lost, Rebecca said honestly, but we would have taken some of you with us. That's the human way. We don't build ships to win elegantly. We build them to make the other guy regret starting the fight. Siralis looked up from her console. Commander, I've been analyzing their power systems more carefully. They don't have one reactor. They have dozens of small ones, all linked together. If we destroyed one, the others would keep working. Their ship could lose half its power generation and still function. Redundancy, Kelvrax said softly. They built redundancy into everything. He looked at Rebecca on the screen with new respect. Captain, I think the Genthor sovereignty has much to learn from humanity, and perhaps we have things to teach you as well. Rebecca smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a warrior who'd just earned respect. Commander, I think this might be the beginning of a very interesting friendship. But if you ever scan one of our ships without asking again, friendship or not, we're going to have problems. Kelvrax actually laughed at that. Understood, Captain. Perfectly understood. 3 days later, the diplomatic situation had evolved from pointing guns at each other to pointing at star charts. Captain Rebecca Chen sat in the conference room of the Indomitable, with Commander Kelvrax appearing on the holographic display. Between them floated dozens of technical diagrams and cultural exchange files. Your weapons are fascinating, Kelvrax admitted, studying a diagram of a railgun. Completely primitive, and yet devastatingly effective. You simply throw metal very fast. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution, Rebecca replied. We learned that fighting each other. Energy weapons are powerful, but they require a lot of energy. Kinetic weapons just need speed, and we're very good at making things go fast. Kelvrax pulled up another file. And your armor, 1 meter of composite materials. Do you understand how inefficient that is? The weight alone must make your ships incredibly slow. Slower than yours, yes, Rebecca agreed. But here's the thing, Commander. Your displacement field is amazing technology, but it requires power, lots of power. What happens if someone damages your generator? Kelvrax was quiet. Rebecca continued, "Our armor is passive. It doesn't need power. It just sits there and takes hits. Sure, it makes us slower. Sure, it takes more fuel to move. But it works even if every system on the ship is dead." Cyrillus, who was also present at the meeting, spoke up. "Captain, I've been analyzing your combat doctrine. You fought 3 wars in 300 years, all against yourselves?" "Colony wars," Rebecca said with a grimace. "Mars wanted independence. The Jupiter colonies wanted their own government. The belt miners thought Earth was taxing them unfairly. We've spent the last 3 centuries learning how to kill each other efficiently." "That's horrifying," Cyrillus said. "That's humanity," Rebecca replied. "But here's what we learned from all that fighting. We learned that elegant doesn't always mean effective. We learned that the side that keeps fighting usually wins. And we learned that you should never ever underestimate someone just because their technology looks primitive." Kelvrax made a gesture that the translator interpreted as agreement. "We are beginning to understand this. The Genthor have not fought a war in 20,000 years. We achieve peace through superior technology. Other species see our capabilities and choose not to fight. That works until you meet someone crazy enough to fight anyway," Rebecca said, "or someone too stupid to know they should be scared." "Which category do humans fall into?" Kelvrax asked, with what might have been humor. Rebecca grinned. "Both, probably." The meeting continued with both sides sharing information. The Genthor were amazed by human redundancy concepts. Every critical system on a human ship had backups. And those backups had backups. The humans were equally amazed by Genthor energy efficiency. Their reactors produced 3 times the power of human designs while using half the fuel. But the real surprise came when they started discussing combat tactics. Kelvrax pulled up a scenario showing how the Genthor would engage an enemy fleet. It was elegant, precise, and relied heavily on long-range energy weapons and defensive fields. "We maintain distance," Kelvrax explained. "We use our superior range and accuracy to defeat enemies before they can close with us. It is the civilized way to conduct warfare." Rebecca laughed so hard she almost fell out of her chair. "Commander, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but that's the most naive thing I've ever heard." Kelvrax's face showed offense. "Naive? Our tactics have been refined over millennia." "Against who?" Rebecca asked. "You said yourself you haven't fought a war in 20,000 years. Commander, your tactics are beautiful. They're sophisticated. They would work perfectly against an enemy who also fights fair. But what happens when the enemy doesn't care about being civilized?" She pulled up a human tactical scenario. "This is how we'd fight you. We'd accept casualties to close the distance. We'd use debris and asteroids for cover. We'd sacrifice damaged ships by ramming them into your fleet. We'd target your generators specifically, trying to knock out those displacement fields. And if we could get close enough, we'd board your ships." "Board?" Cyrillus looked confused. "You mean send personnel onto enemy vessels during combat?" "Absolutely," Rebecca said. "Sometimes the best way to capture or destroy a ship is to put soldiers on it. We call them Marines. They specialize in fighting inside ships and stations." Kelvrax and Cyrillus looked at each other in shock. The concept of close-quarters combat in space was completely foreign to them. Wars were fought at distance, with clean energy exchanges. The idea of soldiers physically boarding enemy ships seemed barbaric. That's brutal," Kelvrax said quietly. "That's effective," Rebecca corrected. "Commander, I respect your civilization's commitment to elegant warfare, but if you ever face an enemy who doesn't share that commitment, you're going to have problems." Before Kelvrax could respond, alarms started blaring on both ships. Rebecca's tactical officer burst into the conference room. "Captain, we're getting priority alerts from deep space monitoring stations. Something's coming, something big." On the Illuminated Truth, Cyrillus was reading similar reports. "Commander, it's the Devourer swarm. They've changed course. They're heading toward colonized space." Rebecca saw Kelvrax's face change completely. The confidence and pride disappeared, replaced by something that looked like genuine fear. "What's the Devourer swarm?" she asked. Kelvrax's voice was quiet when he answered. "A biological nightmare. A species that consumes everything in its path. We've been monitoring them for centuries, but they've always stayed in deep space. If they're moving toward inhabited systems, how do you fight them? Rebecca asked. Energy weapons, Kelvrax replied. Massive bombardment from range, but they adapt quickly. After the first few engagements, they develop resistance to whatever you're using. We've been developing new weapons to stay ahead of their adaptation. Rebecca felt cold. And if they've adapted to energy weapons, what then? Kelvrax met her eyes. Then we evacuate the systems in their path and hope they eventually leave. Captain, the Devourer swarm has destroyed dozens of civilizations. They are the one enemy that even the Genthor fear. Rebecca stood up. How long until they reach inhabited space? 6 weeks, Ciralis reported. Maybe 7. They're accelerating. Then we don't have much time, Rebecca said. She looked at Kelvrax seriously. Commander, 3 days ago we were pointing guns at each other. Now we're facing something that scares both of us. I'm going to make a suggestion, and I need you to trust me. What suggestion? Kelvrax asked. You have superior technology and thousands of years of space combat experience, Rebecca said. We have 300 years of experience fighting the dirtiest, most desperate wars you can imagine. The Devourer swarm adapts to energy weapons. But I'm betting they've never seen kinetic weapons moving at 15% light speed. And I'm betting they've never dealt with enemies crazy enough to ram them. Kelvrax was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. Captain Chen, I'm authorizing a full alliance between the Genthor sovereignty and humanity. We will share all tactical data on the swarm. And in return, I want you to teach us how humans really fight. Rebecca smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. Commander, it would be my pleasure, but I have to warn you, you're not going to like it. Human warfare isn't elegant, it's brutal, desperate, and ugly. Right now, Kelvrax said, brutal might be exactly what we need. The war room was crowded with both humans and Genthor. Admiral Patricia Okonkwo, commander of the Terran Colonial Navy's 5th Fleet, stood at the head of the table with Fleet Commander Kelvrax beside her. Between them floated a holographic display showing the approaching Devourer swarm. They look like ships, Patricia observed, studying the organic-looking structures. But they're alive? Semi-biological, Ciralis explained. She'd been working closely with human scientists for 2 weeks now. They're creatures that have evolved to survive in space. They consume metal, organic matter, and energy. They grow larger with each system they devour. Captain Rebecca Chen pointed at the largest structure. That thing is 10 kilometers long. How do you kill something that big? Concentrated energy fire, Kelvrax replied. Target the central core where their command intelligence resides. But as I said, they adapt. The first few ships we destroyed easily. Then they developed resistance to our plasma weapons. We switched to quantum disruptors. They adapted again within hours. They're learning from you, Rebecca said thoughtfully. Every time you attack, they figure out your weapon and develop a counter. Exactly, Kelvrax confirmed. Which is why we've been forced to constantly develop new weapons. But they adapt faster than we can innovate. Patricia leaned back in her chair. So they've been fighting you for centuries. They know all about energy weapons. They've adapted to everything you can throw at them. She smiled grimly. Good thing they've never fought humans before. She pulled up the human fleet deployment. We're committing 30 warships to this fight. I know that's not much compared to your fleet of 200, but quality matters more than quantity. Commander Kelvrax, your ships will engage at range. Use your energy weapons. Let the swarm think this is a normal fight. And what will your ships do? Kelvrax asked. We're going to introduce them to kinetic warfare, Patricia said. Railguns, missile pods, and good old-fashioned nuclear warheads. They've never seen weapons like these. They don't know how to adapt because they've never needed to. Ciralis looked worried. Admiral, these creatures have consumed entire civilizations. They are incredibly dangerous. So are humans, Rebecca said quietly. You're about to see why. The combined fleet met the Devourer swarm at the edge of the Tarno system, a lightly populated colony world with 3 million Genthor civilians. The swarm emerged from FTL like a nightmare. Hundreds of organic ships that pulsed with bioluminescence. They didn't communicate, didn't negotiate. They simply attacked. The Genthor ships opened fire first. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space, striking the swarm vessels. The first few shots were effective, burning through organic armor and destroying smaller creatures. But then the swarm began to change. Their hulls shifted, became reflective, absorbed the energy. "They're adapting," Cyrillus called out. "Our weapons' effectiveness dropping to 60%, 50%, 30%. "Keep firing," Kelvrax ordered. "We need to keep their attention." On the Indomitable, Rebecca watched the energy exchange with cold calculation. "Weapons target the big one. Full railgun spread. Fire when ready." The Indomitable shuddered as 6 railguns fired simultaneously. Solid slugs of depleted uranium accelerated to incredible speeds. They crossed the distance in seconds and struck the largest swarm creature dead center. The effect was catastrophic. The kinetic energy didn't care about adapted armor or energy resistance. The slugs punched straight through the creature's hull, through its internal structures and out the other side. Biomatter exploded into space. The creature writhed and died. The swarm's response was immediate. Dozens of vessels turned toward the human ships. But they were used to fighting at range with energy weapons. The human ships kept accelerating, kept closing distance, kept firing solid metal projectiles that the swarm couldn't adapt to fast enough. "Missile pods launch," Patricia ordered from her flagship. Nuclear warheads set for proximity detonation. Hundreds of missiles streaked from the human fleet. The swarm tried to intercept them with bioplasma, but the missiles were too fast, too numerous. Nuclear fire bloomed across the battlefield, catching multiple swarm vessels in each blast. Kelvrax watched in amazement from the illuminated truth. They're not trying to be precise. They're not trying to be efficient. They're just throwing overwhelming force at the problem. "That's the human way," Cyrillus said, her voice filled with something between horror and admiration. "Brute force until the problem stops moving." But the swarm was massive. For every creature the humans destroyed, 2 more closed in. The battle became desperate. The human ship Newton took heavy damage from bioplasma fire. Its armor held, but half its systems went offline. "Newton is reporting critical damage," Rebecca's communication officer said. "They're venting atmosphere. Life support failing." Patricia's voice came over the fleet channel. "Newton, this is Admiral Okonkwo. Begin evacuation procedures." But Captain James Harrison of the Newton had other ideas. "Negative, Admiral. My reactor is still functional. My engines still work, and I've got a clear shot at that Queen ship." Rebecca understood immediately. "No, James, don't. Tell my crew they did good," James said calmly. "Helm all power to engines. Set reactor to overload in 60 seconds. We're going in." The Newton turned and began accelerating directly toward the largest remaining swarm vessel, the Queen ship that was coordinating the entire attack. Its engines burned at maximum power, pushing the damaged warship faster and faster. "Genthor ships, clear the approach path," Patricia ordered. "He's going to ram." Kelvrax couldn't believe what he was seeing. "That's suicide." "The crew are already dead if they stay on that ship," Patricia said grimly. "Captain Harrison is making sure their deaths count." The Newton crashed into the Queen ship at tremendous speed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the reactor detonated. The explosion was visible from both fleets, a miniature sun that consumed both vessels completely. When the light faded, the Queen ship was gone. The swarm faltered. Without the Queen ship's coordination, the creatures began fighting independently, less effectively. The Genthor energy weapons found new effectiveness. The human kinetic weapons continued their brutal work. "They're breaking off," Cyrillus reported. "The swarm is retreating." But Rebecca wasn't celebrating. She was staring at the empty space where the Newton had been. Good people had died. A ship and crew sacrificed to win the battle. Kelvrax spoke quietly over the communication channel. "Captain Chen, I understand now what you meant about human warfare. It is brutal. It is desperate. But it is also noble. Captain Harrison gave his life to save others. That is something the Genthor understand. We've been doing it for 300 years, Rebecca said tiredly. Fighting, dying, sacrificing. It's not noble, Commander. It's just necessary." On the illuminated truth, Kelvrax made a decision. He activated his displacement field generator and locked coordinates onto the Newton's bridge. If human sacrifice deserved anything, it deserved a chance. "Cyrillus, can you get a transporter lock through all that radiation?" he asked urgently. "Commander, the Newton exploded. There's nothing..." She stopped. "Wait, I'm detecting one life sign, faint. It's in a sealed compartment. But Commander, the timing— Do it, Kelvrax ordered. Now. The displacement field activated, reaching across space into the dying seconds before the reactor detonation. Reality folded, and suddenly Captain James Harrison materialized on the illuminated Truth's bridge, unconscious but alive. Rebecca received the message seconds later. Captain Chen, this is Fleet Commander Kelvrax. I have Captain Harrison. He's injured but stable. I thought humanity should know. The Genthor understand honor. And we pay our debts. For the first time since the battle started, Rebecca smiled. Received, Commander. And thank you. That means more than you know. 6 months after the Battle of Tarnos, the Galactic Council convened for the first time in a decade. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the great orbital station above Gentara Prime. And for the first time in the Council's 1,000-year history, a human was present. Ambassador Sarah Kamathi stood in the circular chamber, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes on her. Most of these species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Humanity had barely left their own solar system in comparison. But the Battle of Tarnos had changed everything. The council speaker, an ancient being from a species called the Velshara, activated the chamber's holographic display. We gathered to discuss the recent conflict with the Devourer Swarm and the participation of humanity in that conflict. Murmurs filled the chamber. Sarah could feel the tension. Some species were grateful, others were wary, and a few were openly hostile to the idea of these violent newcomers joining the galactic community. Fleet Commander Kelvrax stood, his silver skin gleaming under the chamber lights. Honored Council, I speak as the Genthor representative and as the military commander who fought alongside humanity. What I witnessed changed my understanding of warfare, of sacrifice, and of courage. He activated recordings from the battle. The council watched in silence as human ships traded fire with the swarm, as kinetic weapons tore through organic armor, as the Newton made its final run. The Devourer Swarm has plagued this galaxy for 10,000 years, Kelvrax continued. We have fought them to standstills, evacuated systems in their path, and lost countless lives. But we have never defeated them. Until the humans showed us how. A representative from the Korlash species, a warrior race known for their own military prowess, spoke up. The humans fought with primitive weapons, crude kinetic projectiles and fusion explosives. This is not advanced warfare. No, Kelvrax agreed. It is effective warfare. The swarm had adapted to our energy weapons over centuries. They had no defense against weapons they had never encountered. Sometimes, Honored Council, primitive is exactly what wins. Sarah stepped forward. If I may address the council? I know humanity's history concerns many of you. We fought 3 major wars among ourselves in 300 years. We've built weapons designed to kill other humans efficiently. We are violent, aggressive, and we solve problems by hitting them until they stop being problems. The chamber was completely silent now, Sarah continued. But here's what else we are. We're innovative. We're stubborn. When we commit to something, we don't give up. And when someone threatens innocence, we fight. Not elegantly, not efficiently, but we fight until we win or until we can't fight anymore. The Velshara Council speaker leaned forward. Ambassador Kamathi, there are concerns that humanity's aggressive nature makes you dangerous, that bringing you into the galactic community risks future conflicts. Honored speaker, Sarah replied, we've been in space for 300 years. In that time, we've fought exactly 0 wars with alien species. We fought each other, yes. But the moment we met the Genthor, the moment we faced the swarm together, we put our human conflicts aside. Because that's another thing about humans. When the real enemy shows up, we stop fighting each other and focus on the actual threat. Captain Rebecca Chen, present as a military advisor, added her voice. The council needs to understand something. Human warfare isn't about conquering. It's about surviving. Every war we fought was a civil war. Colonies wanting independence. Different political factions fighting for control. We fight each other because we're passionate about our beliefs, but we've never, not once, tried to conquer or exterminate another species. Kelvrax pulled up more data. The Council should also know that human technology, while less advanced than ours, has unique advantages. Their redundancy systems, their kinetic weapons, their willingness to accept damage to close with an enemy, these are not primitive tactics. They are different tactics, and the galaxy needs different right now. A representative from the scholarly Anthari species spoke. But surely the Devourer swarm was a unique situation. Once they adapt to kinetic weapons, humanity's advantage disappears. Maybe, Rebecca said. But by the time they adapt to railguns, we'll have something else. Humans are really good at coming up with new ways to break things. Give us a problem and we'll find a solution. It might not be elegant, but it'll work. Sarah pulled up a document. The council asked what humanity wants from membership. Here's our proposal. We'll share our kinetic weapons technology and our redundancy engineering. We'll provide military support against threats like the swarm. In exchange, we want access to your knowledge, your technology, and your markets. We want to learn from species that have been traveling the stars for millennia. And we want to be treated as equals, Rebecca added firmly. Not as primitives, not as curiosities, as equals who bring something different to the table. The council deliberated for 2 hours. Sarah and Rebecca waited outside the chamber with Kelvrax. How do you think it went? Sarah asked. Honestly, I have no idea, Kelvrax admitted. The council moved slowly. They may take months to decide, but the council surprised everyone. After 2 hours, the chamber doors opened. The Vilshara speaker announced, "The council has reached a decision. By a vote of 34 to 13, humanity is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. You will have full voting rights after a probationary period of 10 years, during which your conduct will be observed." Sarah let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Thank you, honored speaker. Humanity accepts these terms. However, the speaker continued, there are conditions. Humanity must agree to limit military expansion. You will not weaponize more than 100 systems, and you must share your kinetic weapons technology with the Council's defense forces. Agreed, Sarah said, but we have one condition of our own. If the Devourer swarm or any similar threat appears again, humanity gets a seat at the command table. Our tactics, our strategies, our way of fighting. We're not just providing weapons. We're providing a completely different approach to warfare. The speaker was quiet for a moment, then made a gesture of agreement. Acceptable. Let it be recorded that humanity has joined the Galactic Council. May this be the beginning of a prosperous alliance. Later that evening, Rebecca stood with Kelvrax on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. A year ago, you scanned my ship without permission, she said with amusement. Now we're allies. The galaxy moves fast. Not fast enough for humans, I suspect, Kelvrax replied. Captain, can I ask you something? Are you really as violent as you present yourselves, or is it partially an act? Rebecca considered the question carefully. We're as violent as we need to be. Most humans want peace, want to live quiet lives. But when we're threatened, when innocents are in danger, we become something different. We become dangerous. The trick is knowing when to be which version of ourselves. And you think the galaxy needs dangerous right now? Kelvrax asked. I think the galaxy has gotten comfortable, Rebecca said. You've had peace for so long that you've forgotten how to really fight. You fight with rules, with elegant tactics, with the expectation that your enemy will do the same. But the swarm doesn't follow rules, and there might be other threats out there that don't either. So humanity becomes the galaxy's warriors? Kelvrax sounded troubled. That's a heavy burden. We've been carrying it for 300 years, Rebecca replied. Fighting, dying, learning how to survive against impossible odds. If we can use those skills to protect others instead of just ourselves, that gives meaning to all those sacrifices, all those people who died in the colony wars. Captain Harrison and the Newton crew, they all died fighting. At least now they're dying for something bigger than human politics. Kelvrax was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, When I first scanned your ship, I thought you were primitives. I thought your technology was crude and your species was insignificant. I was wrong about everything. We are primitive, Rebecca said with a smile. Compared to you, we're barely out of our caves. But we're also survivors. And sometimes, Commander, that's more important than being advanced. I'm beginning to understand that, Kelvrax said. The Genthor have a saying, the strongest tree bends in the wind. I think humans have a different approach. Yeah, Rebecca agreed. We're the tree that refuses to bend. We might break, we might fall, but we go down fighting. And somehow, Kelvrax said, that makes you the most formidable species I've ever encountered. He made a formal Genthor gesture of respect. To humanity, may the galaxy never see you as an enemy. Rebecca returned the gesture with a human salute. To the Genthor, may you never need to learn just how stubborn humans can be. They stood together in comfortable silence, two warriors from vastly different cultures, looking out at a galaxy that had just become a little smaller and a lot more interesting. The future was uncertain. Threats would come. Conflicts would arise. But for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy had something it had been missing. It had humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same.